Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're tackling a question that's been buzzing around the tech world.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Yeah, with coding boot camps becoming so
Or are
popular.
they really the golden ticket?
Exactly. Our listener wants to know if boot camp grads really do perform better than those with traditional CS degrees.
A classic showdown.
We're going to unpack this using a blog post aptly titled, "Do boot camp grads actually perform better in tech?"
So we're diving into the perceptions and the realities.
You got it. Now, boot camps have definitely shaken things up.
Big time. They're the fast track, the shortcut, the crash course.
And that's a huge draw, especially for career changers.
Makes sense. They're shorter, more affordable, and laser focused on what you need to know right now.
The blog post really highlights that appeal, condensing 4 years of CS into just a few intense months.
Sounds intense. But is it enough? I mean, does that really translate to better performance in the long run? That's the million-dollar question. And the blog post gets into the nitty-gritty of it all by breaking down performance into 6 key dimensions.
Ooh, a performance matrix. I like it.
Right. So we're talking technical skills, problem solving, adaptability, collaboration, career progression, even job satisfaction.
It's a whole package deal, not just a load who can write the slickest code.
Exactly. So we'll go through each of these dimensions, see what the blog post says about how bootcamp grads and CS grads typically fare,
We'll compare and contrast, highlight the strengths and weaknesses.
and hopefully give our listener a clearer picture of what all this means for their own tech journey.
Sounds good. So where do we start?
Let's kick things off with technical skills, shall we? Boot camps are known for being super hands-on.
Immersive, right? You're coding day in and day out.
Exactly. You're using the latest tools, building real-world projects.
So boot camp grads come out pretty sharp, proficient with what's hot in the market right now.
It's all about being job ready. That's the focus.
But the blog post hints at a trade-off, doesn't it?
There's always a trade-off, right?
While boot camp grads are mastering the now, CS grads are building a deeper, well, let's say, a more foundational understanding.
Yeah, they're delving into algorithms, data structures, the theoretical underpinnings of it all.
So it's like boot camp grads are building the house, while CS grads are understanding the blueprint, the engineering behind it.
That's a great analogy. Both are obviously crucial, just different approaches.
And both have their limitations, right? A boot camp grad might struggle with a super complex algorithm.
While a CS grad might take longer to figure out how to implement something using the latest framework.
It's about different types of expertise, different strengths.
Okay, so technical skills, check. Now how about problem-solving abilities?
The heart of it all. I mean, coding is basically just problem solving, isn't it?
In many ways, yes. And the blog post suggests that bootcamp grads and CS grads approach this in their own unique ways.
Like, boot camps emphasize that practical, solution-oriented mindset, right?
You're constantly tackling real-world coding problems, often working in teams, using agile methodologies.
So boot camp grads are pretty agile problem solvers,
Yeah.
good at finding solutions to those everyday challenges.
They're like the MacGyvers of the coding world.
Love that.
Yeah.
But what about those more abstract, theoretical problems?
That's where a CS grad's background in algorithms and data structures can really shine.
They've got the theoretical tools to break down those complex problems.
They can see the bigger picture, analyze those abstract concepts.
Right, it's like they've got a different set of mental tools in their problem-solving toolkit.
And both sets of tools are valuable depending on the type of problem you're facing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So problem-solving, check. What's next on our performance matrix?
Let's talk adaptability and learning speed, something crucial in this fast-paced tech world.
Oh, tell me about it. The tech landscape is constantly shifting, new languages popping up left and right.
New frameworks, new tools, you got to be on your toes.
So who's got the edge here? Bootcamp grads or CS grads?
Well, the blog post suggests that bootcamp grads, with their intensive training and focus on current tech, are pretty adaptable.
Makes sense. They're used to picking up new tools and methods quickly.
Like they're thrown into the deep end and learn to swim fast.
But maybe they'd struggle a bit with something completely new, something outside their bootcamp curriculum.
That's where the CS grads might have an advantage, right?
With your
Yeah.
theoretical foundation. Yeah, they might grasp those new concepts more easily.
Like they've got the underlying principles down so they can connect the dots faster.
It's almost like bootcamp grads are sprinters, quick to adapt to familiar terrain.
And CS grads are more like marathon runners, able to tackle those longer, more complex challenges.
Both valuable, depending on the race you're running.
Okay, adaptability, check. Now let's move on to collaboration and communication.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just about coding in isolation anymore. Most tech projects involve collaboration.
So how do bootcamp grads and CS grads fare in this department?
Well, the blog post mentions that both typically have some experience with collaboration, but the context differs.
Like bootcamp grads often work on team projects during their program, right?
Yeah, they're using industry standard tools, getting familiar with agile methodologies,
So they come out with a good grasp of how to work effectively in a team environment.
and they're often coming from diverse professional backgrounds, which can bring a variety of perspectives to the table.
Interesting. Now, with CS grads, I imagine they've got more of that academic collaboration experience.
Yeah, research projects, presentations, that sort of thing.
So different flavors of teamwork, right?
Exactly. It's like boot camps prepare you for that fast-paced startup environment.
Well, a CS degree might set you up for a more research-oriented or corporate setting.
Both valuable, just depends on the work culture you're aiming for.
Okay, collaboration, check. What about career progression? That's a big one.
Absolutely. It's about how you advance in your career over time.
And the blog post highlights some interesting differences between bootcamp grads and CS grads in this area.
Like bootcamp grads often enter the workforce quickly, gaining practical experience right away.
They're ready to hit the ground running, start building, start contributing.
But there might be a bit of a hurdle when it comes to moving into those senior roles.
The ones that require a deeper understanding of, say, system architecture or complex algorithms.
Yeah, those foundational elements that a CS degree really emphasizes.
So bootcamp grads might need to invest in additional learning to climb that ladder.
It's like they're fast out of the gate, but they might need to build up their stamina for that long-term race.
Makes sense. Now, what about CS grads? Do they typically have a smoother path to those senior roles?
They tend to have a slower start, more time spent in school before entering the workforce.
But maybe that extra time translates to a stronger foundation for long-term growth.
The blog post seems to suggest that, yeah.
Interesting. So bootcamp grads might have that initial momentum.
Well, CS grads might have the long-term advantage.
It's all about recognizing those trade-offs, right?
And remember, this isn't a hard and fast rule. Individual drive and continuous learning play a huge role.
Always. Okay, career progression, check. What's left on our performance matrix?
Last but not least, job satisfaction and retention.
Ah, the happy factor. Got to keep those employees engaged and fulfilled.
Exactly. And the blog post suggests that both bootcamp grads and CS grads can find satisfaction, but their journeys might look different.
Like bootcamp grads might experience a huge initial boost.
That excitement of landing a tech job, using their new skills, making a career change.
It's a big win. But maybe there's also a bit of imposter syndrome lurking.
That feeling of not being good enough, especially when working alongside those with more experience or formal education.
It's natural to feel that way when you're new to something.
And those feelings usually fade as you gain confidence and prove yourself.
So it's a bit of a roller coaster, that initial high followed by a period of adjustment.
What about CS grads? How does the blog post describe their job satisfaction experience?
It seems like they might have a steadier level of satisfaction.
Maybe because they've spent years preparing for this career, they have a more realistic view of the industry.
They might be less prone to that imposter syndrome, more confident in their abilities from the get-go.
But the blog post does mention that they might need to actively seek out challenging work to stay engaged.
Avoid that complacency trap, right?
Exactly. Complacency can be a career killer no matter your background.
So for both bootcamp grads and CS grads, finding that right environment where you can learn and grow is crucial.
It's all about that continuous learning and finding that sweet spot where your skills and passions align.
Absolutely. And speaking of continuous learning, remember that platform the blog post mentioned?
Algo Academy, right. It seems like a pretty valuable resource for anyone in tech, regardless of their educational background.
It caught my eye too. It's interesting how it's positioned as beneficial for both bootcamp grads and CS grads.
Like it bridges that gap, offering something for everyone.
Exactly. It highlights how the focus in tech is shifting towards what you can do, how you continue to learn, rather than just that piece of paper.
I love that. It's about skills, growth, adaptability.
Right. But before we dive into Algo Academy and all its features,
We should probably look at some real-world data.
see how bootcamp grads and CS degree holders are actually faring in the job market.
Theory's great, but let's see what's actually happening out there.
Let's do it. Bring on the numbers.
All right, let's crunch some data. All right, so let's dive into those numbers. The blog post we're looking at pulls in some real-world data to help us see how bootcamp grads and CS degree holders are actually doing out there in the tech world.
Yeah, like are they actually getting hired?
Exactly. That's the first hurdle, right? And the blog post mentions a 2019 course report survey that found a pretty impressive 83% of bootcamp grads landed programming jobs within 120 days of finishing their programs.
Wow, 83%. That's a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah, it is. It seems like those intense practical skills they focus on are really paying off.
Yeah.
Now, how do CS grads fresh out of college compare?
Well, the National Association of Colleges and Employers reports an employment rate of about 76% for CS grads within 6 months of graduation,
So slightly lower than bootcamp grads.
but not by a huge margin.
Right, both paths seem to lead to pretty good job prospects, at least initially. But what about those starting salaries? Is there a big difference there?
The data suggests it's pretty close, actually. The course report survey found the average starting salary for bootcamp grads was around $67,000,
Okay, and for CS grads?
just a tad higher, around $67,500, according to NAC.
So pretty comparable. It seems like if you've got the skills and the drive, you can succeed regardless of which path you choose. But what about the long game? Does the blog post talk about how these career trajectories play out over time?
It does. It mentions a study by TripleByte, a tech recruiting platform, and they found that boot camp grads tended to do really well in web development roles.
Makes sense. Those boot camps often focus heavily on web dev skills.
Right. But those with CS degrees tended to excel in areas that needed a deeper technical understanding, like algorithms and systems design.
So it's almost like choosing a specialization early on, focusing on a specific area of tech.
Exactly. Bootcamp grads are rocking the web dev world, while CS grads are building those complex systems.
But remember, this isn't a set-in-stone rule. Individual strengths and continuous learning can always shake things up.
Of course. Passion and dedication can really change the game. Okay, so we've looked at job prospects, salaries, and career trajectories, but I'm also curious about employer perceptions.
Yeah.
Does the blog post talk about how employers view bootcamp grads versus CS grads?
It does, and this is interesting. Putho 2017 Indeed survey found that 72% of employers believed bootcamp grads were just as prepared to be high performers as those with traditional degrees. Wow, 72%. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, it seems like employers are recognizing the value that bootcamp grads bring to the table.
They're seeing those practical skills, that intensity, and that eagerness to learn.
It's like boot camps are shaking up the traditional model of tech education and proving there's more than one way to build a successful tech career.
But the blog post does mention that some employers, especially in more traditional sectors or highly specialized roles, might still lean towards those with CS degrees.
Right, so it's not a complete paradigm shift just yet.
Yeah, there are still some nuances to navigate, but there's a bigger point here that the blog post really emphasizes.
You mean how it's not just about the education you have?
Exactly. There are so many other factors that come into play when it comes to success in tech.
Like what?
Well, the blog post lists things like individual aptitude and motivation, prior experience, the quality of education, continuous learning, networking, and soft skills.
Okay, let's break those down. Individual aptitude and motivation seem pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You'd have a certain level of talent and passion to really thrive in tech.
Yeah, passion is fuel. It's what keeps you going when things get tough. It's what drives you to learn and solve problems. And prior experience, especially in related fields, can give you a head start.
Definitely. It's like having a foundation to build upon. And when it comes to the quality of education, it's not just about boot camp versus CS degree. It's also about the specific program and institution, right?
Absolutely. Not all programs are created equal. You got to look at the curriculum, the instructors, the opportunities for hands-on experience and networking. All of those factors contribute to the quality of your education.
And then there's continuous learning. We've talked about that before. But it's so crucial in tech where everything is constantly changing.
Yeah, it's like you're always leveling up your skills. And what about networking and soft skills? Those are often overlooked, but the blog post stresses how important they are.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical stuff, but those soft skills are what really make you a valuable team member and leader.
Right. Networking is all about building relationships, learning from others, and opening doors to new opportunities. And soft skills like communication, teamwork, problem solving, and critical thinking are essential for working effectively in any collaborative environment.
You need those skills to communicate your ideas, work well with others, and navigate challenges. It's about the whole package.
So we've covered a lot here. We've talked about job prospects, salaries, career paths, employer perceptions, and all those other crucial factors that contribute to success in tech. But there's one thing I want to circle back to before we move on.
You mean that platform the blog post mentioned, Algo Academy?
Yes, it was highlighted as a valuable resource for both bootcamp grads and CS degree holders. It almost seems like it bridges the gap between those two worlds.
Yeah, it's fascinating how it's presented as beneficial for people coming from both educational backgrounds.
Mhm.
It suggests that the platform really caters to a diverse range of needs and goals.
Exactly. And it reinforces the idea that the tech world is becoming more inclusive and less fixated on those traditional credentials.
It's more about fostering talent, recognizing potential, regardless of where it comes from.
So let's dig a little deeper. The blog post breaks down some of the key features that make Algo Academy stand out. For bootcamp grads, it offers a deeper dive into certain topics.
Also, filling in any knowledge gaps
Yeah.
and strengthening their theoretical foundation.
Exactly. And for CS grads, it provides more practical applications for their knowledge, helping them bridge that gap between theory and real-world implementation.
So it's like a two-way street. Bootcamp grads get more theory, CS grads get more practice.
And beyond that, Algo Academy helps with interview prep, offers continuous learning resources, fosters a community of learners and mentors, and even provides personalized learning paths.
Wow, it's a one-stop shop for anyone looking to level up their tech skills.
It really is, and it highlights how the tech world is evolving to prioritize skills, growth, and adaptability over just where you got your initial training.
It's about what you can do, not just what's on your resume.
Okay, so we've explored the data, the trends, and even some resources for continuous learning. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'd love to hear your overall takeaways from what we've uncovered.
Yeah, it's really about recognizing that there's no one right path, you know?
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's okay. We've seen how both boot camps and CS degrees have their own unique strengths, and they cater to different learning styles and goals.
Boot camps are fantastic for those who want that fast track, that immersive, hands-on experience, especially those making a career switch.
And CS degrees provide that deeper dive into the theory and the fundamentals, which can be so valuable for certain roles and long-term growth.
But ultimately, it's not about which path is better.
It's about choosing the path that aligns best with you, right?
Yeah.
Your goals, your learning style, your circumstances.
Exactly. And once you're on that path, it's about embracing those other crucial factors we discussed.
Continuous learning.
Absolutely. Honing your soft skills, building your network, and adapting to the ever-changing tech landscape.
It's about being proactive, resourceful, and passionate about what you do.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Tech is a dynamic field, and it's that constant evolution that makes it so exciting.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Hopefully we've given you a clearer understanding of the bootcamp versus CS degree landscape.
And more importantly, we hope you feel empowered to forge your own path in this incredible world of tech.
Whether you're drawn to boot camps, traditional degrees, or some other path altogether, remember that the tech world thrives on diversity.
We need coders, designers, thinkers, problem solvers, creators, and innovators from all backgrounds and with all sorts of experiences.
It's that blend of perspectives and talents that drives innovation and pushes the boundaries of what's possible.
So if you're passionate about tech, don't let anything hold you back.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring the endless possibilities in the world of tech.
And never be afraid to chart your own course, to experiment, and to embrace those challenges along the way.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of tech education and careers.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you.
Until next time, keep coding, keep creating, and keep diving deep.